have three distinguished experts who will address the subject. To my immediate left is John Terra, the Chief Executive Officer of Site Concealment LLC. To John's left is Mark Peabody. He is the Chief Executive Officer of Peabody Engineering, a manufacturer of RF-friendly telecommunications concealment solutions. Peabody Engineering is a 59-year-old company who got involved in the telecommunications industry in 1996 when the need for better concealment solutions for cell sites began to become an important issue. Mark was instrumental in developing custom-built, architecturally matched enclosures for rooftop and other direct to building enclosures and standalone concealment structures. To Mark's left is Sean McClernand, who's the CEO of Stealth. What is really the optimal time to get a concealment company involved in the development of site?
Both of these gentlemen to my right and left have covered a lot of the major areas. One of the things that people don't consider when they're designing a cell site is the part that the public is going to see is the concealment portion. So by discounting that in the beginning, doing all the designs for where the wires are running, where the equipment's going to be, how the antennas are going to be mounted on the roof, that's all important stuff as far as assembly goes, but the end product at the end of the day is, can you see the antennas? What does the site look like? Is it pleasing? Does it match the environment? All these issues should be considered very carefully in the very beginning of the process and not in the final weeks of the installation, which is traditionally what we see happen. Thank you.
Excellent.
Mark, what are the factors that should be considered in your view when selecting a company for procuring concealments?
Okay, some of this stuff is going to be redundant because a lot of these, these things are all intertwined in the concealment. One of the most important things is to choose a company, as Sean pointed out, in the very beginning. Work with that company from start to finish in designing your cell site. Talk about not only the external fit of the enclosure, but how does the hardware on the inside interface with it? What kind of clearances do you have? Too many times you have a surprise from poor planning at the very end when you have a crane, there's a street closure, the police are blocking the intersection, and you're trying to lift this humongous structure on the top of a roof. If you got 2 or 3 inches of an antenna sticking out that you didn't account for during the construction phase, it's a nightmare. You got to shut down the job, redeploy the crane later, thousands and thousands of dollars, not to mention missing your install date. Telecom companies get very excited when they don't get their antennas up and running when they want them. And we hear about that. One of the things that you can do to ensure that you're going to get what you expect is to work with a company that has experience. It's done this a number of times, years, decades. It's important. Chances are, if you're going to be installing an enclosure, some sort of a facade that's going to match the building or the surrounding environment, you're going to, if you're dealing with a reputable company, they're probably going to have photos of something they've done similar in the past. Ask for those photos, some reference jobs that they've done. It'll really give you a better idea of what to expect when your site comes online. The 2 ways that you can construct a cell site is you can get a prefabricated structure or you can do a build on site. I would highly urge people to consider the prefabricated structures because those are basically built in the factory. They're fitted together. The dimensions are all critically measured, compared against the site, and it's a fairly simple process of again, crane picking that up onto the building and bolting it in place in a matter of hours as opposed to a matter of days. One of the budget considerations that most carriers have is, how much am I going to spend? I want to minimize the cost of this build, so if I can save several $1,000s on an enclosure, that's going to make me look good on my budget. What they fail to consider is you save a few $1,000s on the structure, and then you spend a week or a week and a half with a crew of construction guys paying prevailing wages. That savings can be absorbed very quickly. So always consider the installed cost when you're doing this and not just the raw cost of the material in the beginning. One last thing that you're really going to want to think about is what type of engineering and test data does the company have. You should be working with engineering local structural engineers that are certified in your state that are concerned or aware of the design factors that are important. Here in Florida, you have hurricanes, okay? So you want to have 130-mile-an-hour wind rating on your stuff. California, where I'm from, we have earthquakes. You got to have, you got to consider the seismic stresses of the enclosure. All of this stuff is really important, and if you deal with the wrong company, they're going to miss some very critical issues. A lot of people want to get into this business because it looks like it's a nice thing to do, but you don't want them to go through their learning curve on your project. The last thing is the RF compatibility. Make sure that the product that you're buying is third-party tested by an independent lab, and that you have the low reflection absorption, RF losses in your materials. If you could have a real nice looking product, but it's killing your RF signal, and nobody wants that to happen.
Well, what are the kind of new materials and products and designs and trends that each of you are kind of seeing here at CTIA or otherwise to address the matter of concealment of these cells?
The point is that John made is you don't want to limit yourself to what's out there and resign to the fact that, okay, I got to put this ugly box on the side of a building. You can be creative, deal with creative people that do this for a living, and don't rule out, polyethylene or polypropylene, or we use a lot of foam, just regular styrofoam with a hard coat urethane over the top. We can go in a CNC machine and cut out virtually any shape that you can imagine. I can make a puppy dog enclosure if you want. It doesn't matter. Whatever you want, we can make out of the materials that are available. And the RF properties of that material is amazing. So it's lightweight. It weathers well. The main thing that you want to concern yourself with is what people are calling visual pollution now. I was just down in this town of Celebration, Florida, just south here. It's a beautiful little community. There's not a stoplight in the town. You walk down to the market or the local pub or whatever else, and everybody's got the little golf carts they go around. They don't want to have some ugly, poor attempt at a tree there with a cell site in it. They want to put something in there that's going to match the beauty and the feel of the community. And in order to do that, you have to be a little bit creative. So don't just say, look, I want to stick a fake brick wall planter box in the middle of the town. Figure out what's going to look good, what's going to not be noticed, and it's going to actually enhance the appearance of the community. And that's the approach that you want to take. You can't do that, though, at the end of a project. That's what Sean was saying earlier. You've got to get involved early and come up with a solution that everybody's going to be happy about. The zoning commission is going to love you for it.
But there must be some limiting factors on the use of these technologies to make sure the site continues to operate effectively. And what are those kinds of limitations?
The first and foremost, of course, is the RF performance. For the RF engineers, they live and breathe that kind of stuff. These are guys that party with IT people, okay? They're a dynamic group of guys, but their main concern is, hey, what kind of interference are we going to have from this stuff? You don't want to put a piece of drywall up in front of an antenna. You don't want to put it behind a brick building or a wood structure. It just doesn't work. So the first thing you got to do is you got to pick a material, and Sean's got a whole line of different things he can do, and that's why he said he looks at the site and tries to fit his product to it. Like we all do, you have stuff that is RF tested, it's proven to perform, and that's the first thing. It can look really good, but if you can't shoot your signal through it, who cares, right? So, a lot of stuff at Disney looks really good, but you're not going to shoot a signal through it. But a good concealment manufacturer can make something that looks as good as a Disney product, and it does work. You get a 1 dB pressure loss. I also sell tanks. 1 dB insertion loss on your RF signal, it's okay. I mean, you can live with that. And, the other thing is, to be concerned about is different frequencies are a different animal. You can be at 700 megahertz on a Nextel phone, and there's really not a lot of problems because of the wavelength. You get up into the 2.6 gigahertz up in that range, you got a real short wavelength, and it's a whole different ballgame. So you just don't assume if it works at 700 or 800 megahertz that you're going to be up in the high gigahertz that it's going to be fine. So just make sure that the concealment guy that you're working with is giving you the right stuff for the frequency that you're operating on. The accuracy of the construction drawings. It's always a nightmare. Don't rely on what the architect put on there for dimensions because they're never right. Always have the guy do a sidewalk. Otherwise, you're going to end up with a nightmare site. The landlord's going to be all over you, and you're going to call and take it out on us, and we don't want that to happen. an inexpensive, cheap concealment is not necessarily going to be cheap. At the end of the day, if they're using the wrong materials, they put it up there, and it might look good the day it's up there, but you know, you get warpage, you get separation of the seams, they use the wrong kind of paint, and even if you have the right materials, you go down and you slap a little bit of Sherwin-Williams paint on the top of it that you buy at the local store. It matches the building, but it's got titanium dioxide in there, and the signal's not going to like that at all. So you got to, every detail's got to be captured when you're doing this stuff.
I think we've covered a lot of ground here. Why don't we open it up to the audience for questions? Sir?